Thanks for coming out tonight. And, you know, I knew your senator was conservative, but I didn't know how funny he is. I tell you, he's probably got another career, you know, doing stand-up comedian in Dubuque, Des Moines. What do you think? I grew up in a small town, and I flunked kindergarten. They said I didn't draw inside the lines. That's what my brothers and sisters said. But I think the birthdays changed when we moved there. I had to go twice. But I rode my bike to school from kindergarten through 8th grade. I rode my bike to baseball practice, swimming, football, basketball, and it was great. It was living in a small town. I still can remember playing for hours, wiffle ball, home run derby, hitting it over the electrical power line. I tell you all that to know that living in a small town, I think you get to know a little bit about people, and in your town you know who the good people are, the bad people, who the people behave, who the people who don't behave. Most of the time I was in the behave category. But I say that to tell you that I think in a small town, sometimes you can be a judge of who good people are. And the one thing I can tell you from getting to know your senator and Mrs. Grassley is they are the good people. Thank you very much. I was in New York the other day. We're driving down the road and we come up to the Federal Reserve. The police. This is an easy crowd. The police are everywhere. The road is blocked and we're sitting there for hours. So we get out of the car and we go up and we ask the police what have happened. They said the Federal Reserve has been robbed. And we said, really? And they said, yeah, but they caught the thieves. They got in front of the safe. They had the big safe open, but they were perplexed. They were flummoxed. They didn't know what to do with minus $16 trillion. I know you've heard some bad things about Obamacare, and I haven't been a big fan of Obamacare, but you know, your government just wants to take care of you. They don't think you're smart enough to make these decisions, okay? So, I'm a physician, and when you come in to see me, I put down a little diagnostic code. There was 18,000 of these. But under Obamacare, they're going to keep you healthier because now there's going to be 140,000 codes. Included among these codes will be 312 new codes for injuries from animals. 72 new codes for injuries just from birds. 9 new codes for injuries from the macaw. The macaw? I've asked physicians all over the country, have you ever seen an injury from a macaw? There's 2 new injury codes under Obamacare for injuries sustained from a turtle. And you might say, well, turtles can be dangerous, but why do you have to have 2 codes? Well, your doctor needs to inform the government whether you've been struck by a turtle or bitten by a turtle. There is a new code for, I see some alcohol out there, walking into a lamppost. There's also a code for walking into a lamppost, subsequent encounter. I guess that's if you don't learn. There is a code for injuries sustained from burning water skis. Your government's just trying to take care of you. Kids communicate these days and they get their news from comedians, from YouTube. They don't watch the regular news. So my 16-year-old son, 17-year-old now I think, 17-year-old son sends me a YouTube of Jimmy Kimmel on the street. And Jimmy Kimmel's on the street and he says to a young woman walking down the street, he says, well, you heard the president has pardoned the sequester and he sent it to Portugal. What do you think? And the young lady said, well, you know, the president wouldn't do it if it weren't a good thing. I trust the president. Besides, I think Portugal deserves to have the damn thing. So he went on and he asked some other people, he said, well, what about, I guess you've heard that North Korea's been rattling the saber and North Korea's launched missiles and they're doing these things. Well, you heard the president has sent them to sequester. And so people would come up and they'd say, well, damn right those North Koreans, they deserve it. And they ought to keep the sequester. But seriously, I think we're winning the public relations battle on the sequester. You know, the president thinks, oh, I'll just close down the self-guided tours of the White House. That'll teach them. But the same week he closes down the self-guided tours to the White House, which I'm not sure what the funding mechanism is for self-guided tours to the White House. He closes them down, but he finds $250 million to send to Egypt. In addition to the $2 billion we're already sending to Egypt, in addition to the F-16s we're sending to Egypt, in addition to the Abrams tanks we're sending to Egypt, and I scratch my head and say, he's got all that money, but he can't keep the White House open? The thing is he's playing a game on the American people, and you know what? We're not buying it, Mr. President. $3.8 trillion government, $3.8 trillion, and you can't find money to cut without cutting the air traffic controllers, the meat inspectors, without giving us 3-hour-long line. I want you to raise your hand and say the next time you're at the airport you will say under your breath a bad word about what he's doing over the sequester, because it infuriates people, and it should infuriate travelers and anybody in the airport that you're being made to be a game here. It's a game to show, oh, the sequester, but it's not working. You know what, Mr. President? It's 2% of the rate of growth of government. Has anybody seen the chart on TV? If we do nothing over 10 years, government grows like this. If we do the sequester, government grows like this. There's not even a white space between the lines. But the president says, woe is me, we could never cut any spending. So I've got a few items for him tonight. We spent $325,000 last year to discover whether a squirrel or whether a rattlesnake will bite a squirrel that's not wagging its tail. They could not find a squirrel to volunteer not to wag its tail in the cage, so they had to build a robotic squirrel. And guess what? The rattlesnake will bite the you-know-what out of a squirrel that's not wagging its tail. $325,000. $500,000 was spent developing a menu for Mars. And this is a great thing. If you've got kids, if you ever have a 26-year-old son or daughter that's living in their basement and you wish they had a job, perfect job for them. $5,000 stipend, all expenses paid trip to Hawaii, and the only prerequisite is you have to like to eat food. So they got a bunch of college students, and they went to Hawaii for 2 weeks, and they developed a menu for Mars, and guess what a bunch of college kids came up with? Pizza! That was some money well spent. We spent $3 million last year on turtle tunnels. This one, I can't help but have the picture in my mind of a sign that says, turtles go under the road, not over the road. Please, turtles, go through the tunnel and not across the road. I'm sure that one's working really well. We spent $1.8 million developing roll-up beef jerky. That came out of the military budget. We spent $5 million in the military budget on studying the collective action of fish. These are just the ones I can remember. There's hundreds of these. Tom Coburn has done a great job looking through all of these and finding these. It is amazing the amount of waste. You could imagine how much waste there is in government. So, Mr. President, if you want to tell us we've got to fire the air traffic controllers, but we're still going to get roll-up beef jerky, we're not going to tolerate it.